Just 2 days away from the EFL Cup final at Wembley, both Arne and Eddie Howe have come out fighting. A win for Newcastle ends a 70-year wait for a domestic trophy, but Slot thinks the final is just as important for the holders Liverpool.
No, I don't go along with that, no. A final in this country is always special because of the fact there are so many strong teams in this country, in this league. So if you reach a final, it's always a big moment for them, but definitely also for us. Because in the end, although we've got 2 cup games in this country, but you can never take a final for granted. And it's not like this, for Liverpool it happened last season, but we don't play every single season, every final. So it is special for them, but definitely also for us.
A lot's made of that, and of course I understand why. But I think it's a real motivation for us to try and break that long time and that long wait that everyone's feeling here. It should be inspiring for us, not a negative. And I understand it will be a negative or perceived negative for a lot of people, but we're trying to look at it the other way around. A chance to make history for us as a team. That's very rare in football. You get very few opportunities to do that. Chance to be remembered positively, which again is not very many times in your career you get a chance to do that. So I think they're all positive outcomes. And I want the players to look at it that way, as I said earlier, to attack the game and to give a good representation of us.
Now, could this be a deciding factor in Sunday's final? Slot confirmed Liverpool will be without key defender Trent Alexander-Arnold through injury, and he doesn't expect him back anytime soon.
And therefore, at right back as well, is it a straight choice between Jarell? Maybe Endo could play there?
Yeah, I think maybe even Curtis can play there, but and you can also play with a left-footed defender on the right side, which is what Newcastle are doing at the moment, but then on the opposite. So Trent is indeed not available. He will not be there at the final, but he's still to be assessed for how long it's going to take, but we do expect him back in the end of the season. And yes, Trent is a very important player for us, and yes, Anthony Gordon is a very important player for them. But the good thing for both managers is that there are still a lot of quality players available for both managers.
Now, as we mentioned, 70 years of hurt for Newcastle stretch back to their last domestic win in 1955. That was the FA Cup. Since then, it's 5 cup finals and 5 defeats, including this very game 2 years ago. Only Chelsea have lost more consecutive cup finals.
I don't wish that it was that way, but it means a lot that we have the chance to change that. As I said, I think we have to just be focused about the game and not let the fact that the club hasn't won anything in a long time get to us too much. I understand the excitement around the city and around the whole club. But personally, I just feel focused and quite relaxed for the game and obviously excited, but focused on the job.
Now, 2 years ago, Bruno Guimaraes was in tears after Newcastle lost to Manchester United. He hopes he might have happier tears this time around.
Yeah, I want a tear of happiness this time. Everyone knows how emotional I am. I always try to give everything that I have in the pitch to play as a fan because I know what it means for them. So I still remember this moment. Like I said, this time I wanna cry of happiness and hopeful everything gonna be good for us on the day.
Well, both clubs also faced issues around the future of their best players. For Liverpool, captain Virgil van Dijk is out of contract in the summer, and he said this week he isn't thinking about his future, while Newcastle forward Alexander Isak has also been linked with a move away.
I don't know what's happening next season as well, in terms of results, but that's not what you mean. The only thing I know is that I want Virgil to be here next season, and all the rest is talks about contracts, and that's not what I do over here.
Is it impacting planning at all for next season?
Oh, interesting way of asking things. No, it doesn't. Not for me. No.
I've said many times I don't really look too much or think too much about my future. But yeah, I've said I'm happy here, and we are contenders for titles, which is what you wanna win as a football player. We've been in a final, and now we're in another one. I've said many times, like during a season, I just focus on the job, and now it's probably the worst time to even think about anything else. So all of our focus is just on Sunday, and yeah, doing good and hopefully bringing the trophy back to Newcastle.
And you'll be able to hear more from Bruno Guimaraes and Eddie Howe on Super Sunday Matchday this weekend. The team are live from Wembley. That's from 10 o'clock right here on Sky Sports News. And coverage of the match itself is on Sky Sports Football from 3:30. Now, there's more good news for Newcastle this morning, with Dan Burn included in Thomas Tuchel's first England squad. It's the first time Burn has been called up for his country.
I have to say there's no one more deserving, in my opinion. Starting to work with Dan when we did, and came in obviously during our relegation battle, just such an inspiring guy, but also a very talented player. And I think it's a great story, really. One of the great football stories, one of the great comebacks. Someone who had to do it the real hard way, coming through the leagues. Dedicated, professional, a leader, a real man, an inspirational figure.
So the story, the narrative around this one is the defending champions looking for their first trophy under their new manager against a side who are looking to end 70 years of hurt. Someone reminded me this week that Alan Shearer, who you picked out as your favourite Premier League celebration, not won a trophy with Newcastle. That shows you how far back it's gone. They're looking to make history. I mean, what are you thinking about this one, Glenn?
Well, 70 years weighs heavy.
Yeah.
But they got the final, was it a couple of years ago? So I feel as though they've got that whole experience out, and that they'll go into this game a different creature kind of thing. What am I thinking? I think Liverpool are missing people. Newcastle are as well. It's a really, really difficult one to call, this one. I think that Liverpool will just have too much. I think the big players will turn up when they need to. Your Van Dijks, your Salahs, McAllister. I think that they will ultimately turn up. Gordon missing for Newcastle is really key and really unfortunate. And not too long ago in the Premier League, Liverpool put Newcastle to bed at a canter. Isak wasn't playing that day, so that is the one caveat to that result. It's going to be an interesting final.
It will. I mean, Gordon will be absolutely devastated. That moment of frustration, petulance, call it what you want, but it now has robbed him of the opportunity to play in a match that he would have dreamed of when he was at Everton and when he joined Newcastle.
Especially with the context behind it being Liverpool.
Indeed. And I think as far as the form is concerned, you're right. On form, Liverpool should win this because they won at a canter. But this is at Wembley. This is a big occasion. It's a silverware opportunity. And you don't know how that kind of pressure affects people. I do think Liverpool with more attacking options are the favourites. But then I look at Salah, and the last couple of games, he's not been the Salah we know and love, you know. And I'm wondering which Salah will turn up in this match. It seems ridiculous to say, of course, but
when you look back at Liverpool's last 6 games, I think or 8 games, sorry, they've drew 2 and lost 2. And then I think to the 4 they've won, one was Southampton where they sleepwalked through, and the other was Newcastle without Isak. So going into this final, Liverpool aren't in great form.
No.
So it's going to be really interesting. And also, I watched Isak in the semi-final at Arsenal, and Arsenal's defence obviously is elite. It's their strongest point. And Isak ran Gabriel and Saliba ragged. And I feel as though he possibly could do the same to Van Dijk.
Liverpool give you a chance in defence. I know that because going forward they are so good, people don't really look at that. But Liverpool hand chances to the opposition, and Isak could easily give Liverpool a problem. And also on top of that, I know the last couple of games, Salah's been sensational. Listen, all season, we know that he has terrific composure. He picks up fantastic positions. And he can give Newcastle a real problem, but I look particularly at the PSG game. It was billed as Salah against Dembele. Well, we saw a lot of Dembele. We didn't see that much of Salah. And so I'm just wondering, listen, it might well be that he says, I need to make a statement in this match, and we see a superb performance, but we know we're going to get this from Isak. It's the reason why so many big clubs want him. He's having the season of his life.
Yeah.
And we know Wembley's big. There's plenty of turf to run in behind too. Unfortunately, we won't have Gordon alongside him, which helps. They're a real good partnership and they have a good understanding. But again, he will stretch that play to let Bruno Guimaraes get on the ball and try and dictate play. So I really feel it's a final that could go either way.
And also no Trent on the right side of the of defence, which means Conor Bradley is up against a guy. You know, Conor Bradley's still learning the game. He's a good player, but still learning the game. He's up against Isak, who is just fire right now. And how does he deal with that? You know, the positions that Isak tends to take up, that will give him a real problem. And if Conor Bradley doesn't play, because I know there is some doubt about whether even he will play, then what do they do then?
You know, a Quansah might come in, but again, like, he's not an out-and-out right-back, is he? So, yeah, it's that will be an area where, surprisingly, Gordon would have been perfect for, wouldn't he? They've both got suspensions and injuries on that right and left-hand side. So, it's finally balanced, I would say, this final.
Yeah, you made a very interesting point, which I want to pick up on, is the form that Liverpool are in. Because they have made such a big gap at the top of the Premier League, it's easy to say, you know, they're on form, and Liverpool fans may not agree. They may see that against PSG, for example. I know you say they sleepwalked their way through the Southampton game, but I had a lot riding on that game because I brought my father all the way from Cape Town for his first time to go to Anfield, and when it was 1-0 at half-time, I nearly left. I was devastated. So not true. They had to battle back. They were very quiet. They were very... Southampton had opportunities and they scored that goal in the first half. So maybe not the Liverpool we saw from a couple of months ago. And yet this is a cup final. This is a chance for someone like a Salah, as you mentioned, who we don't know if he's going to stay on, if this is his swan song season. We have no idea yet. A chance for someone like Virgil van Dijk, who we're also not sure of yet. And the big players, no matter what they're going through, as you guys also mentioned, this is a one-off game.
See, for us in newspapers, that subplot, the romance and all that stuff, newspaper, in media, it's fantastic, right? But on the pitch, and you probably would speak to this better, I just wonder if Liverpool are so far clear in the league that the intensities come out of their game. And so, or they do have those motivations, those individual motivations, but they might just be experiencing the frustration of not being able to go again, not being able to get back to where they had been.
Well, I think leaning into that narrative, also going out the Champions League, which was kind of a main focus for them, because they are so far ahead in the Premier League. It's kind of, right, let's concentrate on the Champions League. And when you get, I think the best way to put it is by humbled by PSG over two legs. They were absolutely superb. All of a sudden, it's like, actually, we really need to win this Carabao Cup. So it might spark them into life, but it's whether they're able to spark into life after having what has been an okay period, not a period that we've become used to over Liverpool this season.
So we do predictions at the end of the show, but we don't have space for this prediction, so I need a Carabao Cup winner. I need a prediction.
Do you know, I actually think I should not
I'm going romance. I'm going Newcastle to break their 70-year curse.
I think Newcastle as well. I do. I know I never thought I'd say it, but I just think if you're Newcastle and you're Eddie Howe, because this is as much about the managers as well, I think Eddie Howe says to his players, attack them. They're hurting, they're feeling sorry for themselves. After the other, go after them. This is their third League Cup. They've lost the other two to the Manchester clubs. They will not want to be losing this one. I think they will say attack them. They've got weaknesses that you can take advantage of. Go for the jugular.
I've got to stop you there before the angry Liverpool fans DM me once again. That's just Darren's personal opinion. When we come back now, we focus on...
Days away from the Carabao Cup final. Can Newcastle end that 70-year drought? Well, Keith Downey was speaking to Eddie Howe this morning. We're going to head to Keith now. We're going to, I guess, start by talking about Dan Burn, Keith, after his England call-up.
Yeah, morning Hayley. We're obviously here at the Newcastle United training ground today for their Carabao Cup final press conference ahead of their trip to Wembley. They'll make that journey yesterday. But just as Eddie Howe was entering the room at 9 o'clock this morning, at that exact moment, news was breaking that defender Dan Burn, as you rightly say, had been called up to Thomas Tuchel's England squad for the very first time. A surprise inclusion, I think many would accept. Of course, Burn is 32 years old now, has never been capped before, and probably felt that his chance to play for England had gone. So if Newcastle lift the Carabao Cup final on Sunday, Dan Burn, instead of partying and enjoying it with his teammates, will be heading off to join up with Thomas Tuchel and his new England teammates. A surprise inclusion, but definitely a well-deserved one. This is Eddie Howe's reaction, and he'd only learnt the news literally 1 minute earlier when Dan Burn himself told him.
Incredible moment for Dan, and I have to say there's no one more deserving in my opinion. Starting to work with Dan when we did, and came in obviously during our relegation battle, just such an inspiring guy, but also a very talented player, and I think it's a great story really, one of the great football stories, one of the great comebacks, someone who had to do it the real hard way, coming through the leagues, dedicated, professional, a leader, a real man, an inspirational figure.
It is remarkable how much of that is due to his character and personality and determination to just keep going.
Yeah, I'd probably say 99% of it, because he is the model pro really. He's so committed to what he does, and I think he's had to be. I mean, he's been given great strengths, his size and his height. They're brilliant weapons to have on a football pitch, especially as a centre-half. But then you've got to improve all the other areas of your game to sort of see that as a big strength. And he's done that for me. And his character is so stable, so level, that he takes every challenge and every potential negative in his stride and comes back stronger. And I'm so pleased for him on a personal level, because he's thoroughly deserved it.
Have you had the chance to see him this morning?
Very briefly, he told us about the call-up, so very briefly just before coming here, so no time to celebrate with him, straight into this room.
No dancing from him?
Not yet, still time.
Oh, yeah, a real boost for him ahead of this weekend, but goodness me, what a final it's going to be, and there's just been so many years of pain, haven't there, for these Newcastle United fans, Keith?
Yeah, 70, not 17, 70, Hayley, since Newcastle last lifted domestic silverware. Of course, they have lifted a European trophy since then, but that was, 56, 57 years ago. So, look, there's a generation of Newcastle fans who haven't seen them lift a trophy, and as you know, they've been to Wembley a number of times, and they always seem to leave in tears. They leave disappointed, and their team probably, as many would admit over the years, failed to turn up. And there's this story that's gone around these parts. It's gone around Newcastle for a long time now, that Newcastle are cursed, and that goes back to a training ground incident back in 1955 when a group of travellers turned up here, well, not here, but the former Newcastle training ground, just a couple of miles away, and when they were ejected forcibly from the training ground, they put a curse, they said, over the club, and they said, you will never win a trophy after this. That is a myth, a story that's surrounded the club for a long time ever since then. Is it true? We don't know. But Eddie Howe was asked about that curse this morning. He didn't want to use the word, but this was his reaction.
It's a difficult one, because I think a lot's made of that, and of course I understand why. But I think it's a real motivation for us to try and break that long time and that long wait that everyone's feeling here. It should be inspiring for us, not a negative. And I understand it will be a negative, or perceived negative, for a lot of people, but we're trying to look at it the other way around. A chance to make history for us as a team. That's very rare in football. You get very few opportunities to do that. Chance to be remembered positively, which again is not very many times in your career you get a chance to do that. So I think they're all positive outcomes, and I want the players to look at it that way. As I said earlier, to attack the game and to give a good representation of us. The destiny is in our own hands. It's not in any. I'm not even going to use the word that you mentioned, but it's not in those or that mindset really.
We did well to avoid saying it, didn't he? Didn't he? That was great. You, a little earlier, obviously spoke to Eddie Howe, but you also had the opportunity to speak to Alexander Isak, Bruno Guimaraes as well. What did the captain have to say?
Yeah, the club put two of the big star names up to speak to the media this morning ahead of the final on Sunday. And of course, as we know, Bruno Guimaraes, what a character he is. You can see exactly why he's captain. And you think back to Wembley 2 years ago when Newcastle lost 2-0 to Manchester United in the final. There was those famous shots of the Brazilian crying at the final whistle. He said since then he's pictured walking up the Wembley stairs to lift the trophy time and time again. It's a dream of his. And he says, look, I'm an emotional guy. I put my emotions into a game. I play like a fan because I understand how you guys feel. And he, more than anyone, I think, wants to end this trophy drought for Newcastle on Sunday, knowing that he would be the man to get his hands on the trophy first.
Yeah, I want a tear of happiness this time. Everyone knows how emotional I am. I always try to give everything that I have in the pitch. To play as a fan because I know what it means for them. So yeah, I still remember this moment. Like I said, this time I wanna cry of happiness and hopeful everything gonna be good for us on the day.
Right, what about Alexander Isak then? What everyone wants to know, is he fit? Is he ready to go for the final, Keith?
Yeah, well, I think all the Newcastle fans want to know, is he staying here? There's been so much speculation about his future, and he intimated today that there will be talks at the end of the season, but he just wants to park that for now, doesn't want to go there, wants to concentrate on Sunday and try and get the trophy back. He hasn't quite been 100% fit the last couple of weeks, but he says playing against Liverpool gives him the best chance of scoring, and this is why.
I really enjoy the games against Liverpool because I think they're not too different to ourselves. It's like a high-pressing team and direct team, which can lead to many counter opportunities, and that's the game I like. So yeah, I think I've had pretty good success before, and yeah, I feel good and enjoy playing against them.
Yeah, so great to hear from Eddie Howe, Bruno Guimaraes and Alexander Isak this morning as they gear up for their trip to Wembley. They're just training over in the pitches over to my right-hand side right now. That we'll have one more session tomorrow morning before they travel down to Wembley tomorrow afternoon and try and end that 70-year hoodoo. Just finally, Eddie Howe says he's got a fully fit squad to pick from. Obviously, that doesn't include the suspended Anthony Gordon and the injured Lewis Hall and Sven Botman, but the rest of the players, he said, are ready to go as Newcastle and Eddie Howe try to finally create some history here on Tyneside.
Keith, thank you very much indeed.